What's really going on, everyone? Back again with another episode. We are still in our summer season where I am talking all things music. And I am joined by yet another special guest who I have actually unknowingly to me been aware of for almost 6 years via SoundCloud. It is Brooks Welch, who runs the amazing platform Soul Sugar Joint. So, Brooks, how are you?
I'm doing so well. So you're hip to my SoundCloud too?
Yes, so little known story. Going way back into the years of SoundCloud, Brooks actually made an amazing mix called Banks way back in the day that I was drawn to only because I think the color where you had like the circle and then you had like the outer color that was like kind of attractive to the eye. So I was like, oh, let me give this a run. And it included stuff like Peyton and other kind of stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, no one else really listens to stuff like this. And I didn't know that was you until years later.
That's so crazy. Wow. Man, thanks for liking it.
Yeah, no, of course. So please just tell us about, I think, what the feedback has been for those who don't know. Brooks runs an amazing site. She's also a DJ, playlist curator, all of the things that involve kind of music. So just tell me about your journey from just kind of liking music to then transitioning to something like, hey, this is actually something that I can do and put on the internet and monetize.
Yeah, so I have just always been a music head, music nerd. I mean, I grew up with two parents who love music so
Mhm.
much. And music was just always around me, but it wasn't something I consciously thought about. It was just something
Mhm.
that I enjoyed. So putting mixes together because I had friends who were DJs and I would tell
Yeah.
them, these two songs would go crazy together. You should
Yeah.
transition to this. And then they were like, encouraged me to try on my own. So that's how I got started with making mixes. And I would just use the keys on my keyboard. I just got a controller like last year.
Yeah.
So I've always had an ear for music, but actually turning it into a platform, that was something that was very personal to me
Mhm.
because I created this platform after, I mean, I've done content creation for 14 years now.
Yeah.
I've
Mhm.
had a YouTube channel since I was a little girl. So it was really cool to put something as personal as my taste of music into something that something like TikTok. So
Yeah.
it
Mhm.
started out with me talking about ranking the best songs in my personal order. It's
Mhm.
totally subjective of an evening with Silk Sonic, like what
Yeah.
I think number one is all the way to number 7 or 8. And that was how it started. But then I would dive into how Bootsy Collins was a part
Mhm.
of it and how
Yeah.
Alex Isley is Ernie Isley's daughter. And I
Mhm.
didn't know if anyone else cared about those connections between modern and classic soul
Yeah.
music like I did, because 70s music, 80s music is like my
Mhm.
bag. I love jazz, I love
Yeah.
funk, all of that.
Mhm.
And yeah, so it just became something that I thought, man, this is super niche, but let's just see.
Yeah.
I just want to know if there's other music lovers who feel it the same way that I do.
Yeah.
And it just blew up the first month and went to 22,000, and then now we're
Mhm.
at 130,000 in less than 2 years, like a year and
Yeah.
7 months. So I didn't expect it to do so well for
Mhm.
real, but I definitely did know that there was going to be a strong sense of community, and it's just
Yeah.
been cool to see how it's evolved. Now I have an event happening
Yeah.
soon and
And we'll talk about that. No,
growing.
because one of the things that I was thinking about is someone who I think has a certain similar taste in music to you, where I think I wonder if you felt like this, where probably when you're listening to Bootsy Collins and Slave and all these other groups, you're probably like, no one else my age is like listening to this. Like I'm probably
Yeah.
like the only person. So what was it actually like to have other people to be like, oh my gosh, like I grew up listening to this, or yeah, I knew that this sample was off of this song. Like, what was that like to actually kind of feel? I'm sure probably vindicated and like, yeah, other people probably had a similar experience as me. Because I'm sure for me growing up when I was listening to stuff like that, people were like, I don't even know who that is. Like, you're playing loose ends. Like, what's going on? Like, turn something else on. But what was
Yeah.
that like to kind of like, share your taste in music and then actually have it reflected back to you of people being like, oh yeah, I know like what you're experiencing or like that song.
Yeah, it feels like, you're truly being seen and you
Hmm.
feel more confident in yourself because you actually are being embraced for a true part of you. And so that's why
Yeah.
when I make videos about my love for music that's 50 years older than me as an old soul, and I just make it about like, this is for music heads and old souls and those who love timeless music. That's like how I call people in basically. They always feel like they found their people. That's what they always say.
Hmm.
They're like, I
Yeah.
found my people. I found my like where I belong. Like, how do I
Yeah.
become a part of this? Like, I have
Yeah.
people be, where's the link? Like, how do I join? I'm like, you're here. Like, this is
Yeah.
it.
This is not like a subscription service.
Exactly. I'm like, maybe one day, you know.
There it
But
is.
yeah, so that is how it just feels so good because it's something that I was gonna do anyway. And I think that's
Mhm.
like the basis of making something that's super sustainable, especially when everyone preaches about authenticity when it comes to
Yeah.
content creation.
Yeah. What because like for me, I think I got kind of my old soulness, if I can like use that as a word. I got it from certainly playing whatever my parents played, my grandmother, but also when I was listening to rap, I would basically do deep dives on like who sampled, be like, where did that come from? How did you kind of get your taste in music? Because I'm for me, it was kind of pulling from people around me and just being like, oh yeah, on that song, I like that sample. Where'd that come from? So how did you kind of like just start loving kind of this music that you didn't grow up or that wasn't around when you were coming up?
Yeah, so definitely my parents, my dad loves so much good music. Like he when I think of James Brown, Michael
Hmm.
Jackson, he also has very eclectic taste. So he likes like 80s British pop. He also
Okay,
enjoys
yeah,
like
yeah.
jazz just like I do. And then my mom loves Earth, Wind and Fire
Hmm.
and she loves anything that was produced by Maurice White, like a lot of
Yeah.
Denise
Hmm.
Williams stuff.
I
She
have her
loves
vinyl behind me. Yeah. Hmm.
really which one?
The free album.
That's the one I want. I don't have
Yeah.
that. You're on the wrong list. But so yeah, she loves anything that's like really like Patrice Rushen. Her
Hmm.
dad was a jazz drummer. So
Oh, really?
um
Okay.
yeah, music was just like I said, it was all around. And my auntie, she loves New Edition, anything that was happening in the 90s, like Brandy and 2000, like
Hmm.
Usher. So it was like a good mix of stuff. And then I started to have my own relationship with the music, like finding out that I enjoy Stevie Wonder's music above
Hmm.
pretty much all of those artists.
Yeah.
And from then on, it was just different branches of at the time not knowing how to identify what specifically I liked out of the songs. But
Yeah.
as I've been able to talk about music a bit more and do like weekly live streams with
Hmm.
different people from around the world who have similar tastes, I'm able to be like, okay, I lean more towards like jazz chords, or I
Hmm.
lean more
Yeah.
towards music that has like a funky bass line or
Right.
whatever. So
Hmm.
that's just helped me to be a little bit more conscious of my music taste. And then my dad is always giving me facts about who was doing this and who was on that song. And so when I found out that Greg Fillinganes was a
Hmm.
part of Snow Allegra's song
Yeah.
that she put out, Sweet Tea, he was like, oh yeah, Greg Fillinganes, like he did this, like he's just always like knows. And I just always am like getting put on immediately. And I'm like, Dad, did you know? And he's like, yeah. And then
Yeah.
tells me like 10 more facts. So it just kind of, I guess, runs in the blood, just being a little bit more curious.
Yeah. No, I've grown to appreciate that more of just how much parents and like those immediately around us kind of like steer us towards something. It's just kind of whether we're like, yeah, I'll lean back into it because I'm sure we both probably know people who probably grew up listening to the same thing, but they probably just got so tired of it that they were
Hmm.
just like, once they could listen to something else, they're like, oh, I'm never going back to that. But I'm sure for you, it's something that you probably were just like, this is how I grew. This is how I grew up.
Yeah. And I do think it's interesting. I, a lot of people have grown up on the music that,
Hmm.
I've listened to, that you've listened to, but there are like a select group of us who are like, no, but I'm gonna keep it here though. Like
Yeah.
I actually really like this and I'll
Hmm.
listen to this over what's happening right now in the mainstream,
Hmm.
as opposed to the mainstream stuff that's happening right now. Instead, like this is just what my ear gravitates towards. It just sounds more lush and just super high level. I just love stuff that I can feel and I just get that feeling from things that are reminiscent of the past.
No, it's interesting that you say feel because I would certainly say that, especially as someone who loves music history, like I feel like you can't take that feel and then not be able to like apply it to anything else. Like there was a meme of like a party and a guy was sitting in the corner and someone quote tweeted it like, yeah, that guy knows the sample, but no one else does, and he's just thinking about it. Like, can you talk about that? Because I mean, like I've heard you sample like old stuff and mix it with No Worries, and like, how do you connect the past to the present? Because they are interconnected, but you have to kind of like know both to know, okay, hey, this Donny Hathaway song goes with something that No Worries did and that Knowledge produced. Like how are you able to connect those? Because that's really, really hard.
Man, well, thank you for noticing that. I feel like that went over
No,
heads.
I
Like,
was
so
no,
thank you.
I was aware. I was like, because I mean, when I first heard that you did that on TikTok, I was like, I know that song. I hear I can see in the like in the title you're gonna mix it with No Worries, and I'm like, I don't know how you're gonna do that, and then you do, and I'm like, whoa. So how do you connect that? Because some people can't even connect two songs that were made in the same year. So like, how are you able to kind of sense like, hey, this song goes perfectly as a bridge to something that came out 40 years after it?
Man, I mean, I can't say like there's a formula or anything. I really do believe that, the same way that people are able to play instruments by ear, there's just like
Hmm.
the gift that they have. Like I believe
Yeah.
everybody has gifts, and I think it is a gift to be able to hear a song and be able to hear another one and be reminded of it. Like I'll listen
Yeah.
to a song and like how I hear music is I always think, what does this remind me of? Like that's the first question that I always ask myself when I hear something new, because that's how I'll connect it. Whether it's like, so I did a video about Gareth Donkins whenever,
Hmm. Yep.
and he has like those disco claps in it, and a double
Yeah.
clap
Hmm.
reminds me of like Patrice Russian's Forget
Yeah.
Me Not. So it's just kind of like that. I think with DJ ears, it's always kind of like, okay, these drums are similar, or this sound or feeling is similar.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, and it's just being really knowledgeable about your bag. I think
Yeah.
if you're
Hmm.
unable to, if you really listen to a lot of 70s and 80s soul music like I do, then you just have a broader and deeper frame of reference. Then like for me, I can't be anybody's like reggaeton or Afrobeat DJ. Like I know what I
That's not your ministry.
it's not my ministry. Like I know what I'm good at and what I really know. And so I'm
Yeah.
able to listen to a new song and be like, what, like LMA when she just sampled This Is for the Lover in You by Shalimar. And I was
Yeah,
just
she
like,
did. She
my
sure
God.
did.
And it was
Yeah.
really well done too. And somebody might not be able to pick up on that, or you just like, but that's something that my dad always pointed out to me, my mom too, like growing up, like, oh, you have a good ear. Like, yes, that is so and so singing right now.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
I so it's something that feels like a superpower for me in a
No,
way.
it's funny because I feel the same, or at least in terms of like samples, where like if you probably played some 70s jazz song and you just let it run, I'd be like, oh yeah, Tribe Called Quest did that. Like I could like
Yeah.
probably pick out like a certain point. Um, was there a moment when you realized that in terms of because there's a difference between being able to hear something and being able to actually functionally do it? Was there
Mm.
a was there like a moment when you were on your, controller where you were like, oh wait, I don't just hear this, but I'm actually able to do it? Because as someone who has a controller, it's hard being able to like actually not just transition one song to a next, but pick the exact moment to go into. Like that's a skill. So was there a moment where you were like, oh wait, I can actually do this, or this actually makes sense?
Like actually make a DJ set
Yeah.
or
Because it's
um
easier when you're just thinking about it in your head versus actually being like, no, this is real live. I actually have to do it the right way, or else, because I'm sure as you know, if you're off by a second on either side, it doesn't sound right.
it's so true. It's so true. So I guess for me, I I started like what you were able to reference immediately was my start on SoundCloud. So
Hmm.
like how I got my start was the just hearing certain songs and stringing them together based off of feeling. And how I defined
Yeah.
feeling was just like, how would I dance to this song? And would I be able to dance the same way throughout the entire set? Like if I'm just like swaying, or if I actually am like getting into it, or that's how I would do it. That's how I understood what feeling was.
Hmm.
Um, and I just had a good way of curating feel from beginning to end. Like if the first song sounded similar, or like if the first song went with every song in the set, like
Hmm.
thinking of it as a playlist, then that's how I knew that there was a consistent feeling and vibe to it. Like,
Yeah.
and my first time making a what is it, a set, DJ set,
Hmm.
I I used, it was called what the heck is it called? But whatever. It did really, really well online. I
Hmm.
think it was called it had Verbs by Peyton in it.
Yeah, it did.
And
I think that was the one that I listened to, like way,
okay.
way, way back. Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, and I can't even remember the name of it right now. But that that went really, really well. And I didn't expect people to listen to it and really like it as much as they did. But I just knew that I liked how it felt and like I would want to listen to it over and over again.
Hmm.
And that, I guess, is how I knew that it was like something fun for me that I enjoyed. I didn't really think too much about it
Yeah.
besides that. And then when I would make mixes with my cousins or with friends, I would just notice that it didn't come as easily to them. And I'm like,
Hmm.
like just do that, like try this. And they're
It's
just
all up
like,
here. Yeah.
exactly. They either didn't hear it or they just couldn't get the timing right or they didn't understand how to feel it while you're doing it. And so yeah, I didn't know if there was like an exact moment, but I just knew it
Yeah.
was enjoyable. Somehow it was enjoyable to other people who were listening. And yeah, I think that's all that mattered.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say feel. I've noticed that you say that a lot because I think when most people either make, when they listen to music, they're just going off of sound or tempo, where they're just saying, oh, yeah, this is high pitch. This will work with something that's similar to high pitch, even though, like, when you transition, it's like that doesn't work. So I think that's actually, as someone who loves music, I think people often overrate just like, how does this actually make me feel? Where in terms of
Yeah.
if you listen to like a Stevie Wonder song, like his ability to write makes you feel certain things that probably just cannot be replicated. So it's interesting that you say that feel is the thing that you're going off of because most likely the songs will match if it has the same feel.
Yes. It is so important to do that. I think it just helps with flow because
Hmm.
if you are putting together, if you're curating a set and it just the energy level isn't right, like one is just
Hmm.
going really, really fast, but then it's like in the same key, but this one is really smooth and slow.
Hmm.
It's like unless you're trying to just do a hard left type of transition and get people to be like, whoa,
Yeah.
then it's just, you don't seem like you're organized or that you understand like this level of like taking off, being in flight, and then landing.
Yeah. And then landing.
Right. So, yeah, feel is everything. I think that's even why, like, with my Soul Sugar joints, which are my
Hmm.
events that I'm
Yeah.
starting to do around the country now, which is exciting.
Hmm.
Um, feel, I wanted to make sure on the flyer, like, it said a high, like a groovy, high vibrational family cookout. Like, if you understand the feeling behind
Yeah.
that, then you'll know that it's not anywhere to come to flex or have your sunglasses on and be in the corner and be better than anybody else. It's not that type of
Get
vibe.
up and
That's
move.
yeah, get up
Get
and
up and move.
move and socialize and feel better than when you came in, leave
Yeah.
feeling. And I want to bring that back to the music space because I hate the arguments that there's no good music anymore. And I hate the
Hmm.
argument that music that's old is just old and played out and irrelevant. Like, no, we only got here because of what was happening in the past. And there's just so many amazing interpretations and ways that people are innovating on those past sounds and making it even better. So,
Yeah, because I would certainly say, and I think that's like I've long thought about like kind of how the ecosystem in which we consume music is just terrible. Where like the things in which we probably used to have in terms of like publications, like I remember I used to read old vibe magazines that would actually have like the little four mic scores and like all that. Um, in terms of like music that you go, is there any type of music that you always find yourself going back to? Like for me, I know a lot of the stuff I go back to is a lot of Roy Ayers. For just whatever reason, I just always find myself back to his stuff for some reason or another. Is there any artist who you're like, I always go back to this person? I know you said Stevie is like high, high up there, but is it him or is there other folks who you're just like, yeah, every day I somehow find myself listening to this person?
man, I mean, recently it's been Gareth Duncan. Like, he
Hmm.
just has a really good feel in his music. Like, I think it's just his way of interpret of like his choice of like chord progressions is just stellar. Like it's really
Hmm.
like ear candy and it feels so good. And he has just like even the context of what he's talking about in his songs, like
Yeah.
he's making love songs like Stevie
Yeah.
Wonder does as well. So it just makes you feel good on that level too, where you're not putting
Hmm.
crap into your brain and you're also listening to really good music at the same time. And I'm like really big on that. Like I
Yeah.
think that there's a lot of filtering that needs to be done, but it's somebody's job, and being a music curator who
Hmm.
cares about that is like that. That's why I like to go back to his stuff. I love to go back to Cleo Soul's music for the same
Hmm.
reason.
Yeah.
I really love Anderson Paak, Bruno
Yeah.
Mars. well, together, Silk Sonic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I also have like specific songs that I love to go back
Like what?
to.
I'm curious. I'm sure we probably have some synergy there.
Oh man, a song that I go back specifically to, I love Rosamo, like
Yeah. Hmm.
by Lucky Day. Like
Yeah.
it's gorgeous. And D Mile, I love his production. So
Hmm.
he did a song with Annie Tracy
Hmm.
called Times It by Two. And it kind of has that same feeling. It's just really beautiful and like these
Yeah.
grand, but like it still is so clean. I don't know how DeMilo does it, but I love his style. So I've been going back to that like a lot
I feel like
recently.
that's an aspect of music that's like really underrated. And that's why like D'Angelo was probably like I think my favorite artist probably of like all time. Because I feel like there's a in Roll Some More, there's like it's an unrushed song that has like a beauty to it where it's like it's not trying to like rush you to the finish. And I feel like so many, even
Yeah.
like R&B songs today, it's either too fast or it's trying to like get you to the end point too quick. Where I think like a lot of stuff that like Brian McKnight would did, he's like, no, sit in the car. Like we're gonna go on a journey, and it's not gonna be like some like fast paced thing. It's gonna be like an arc to it. And to your point,
Yeah.
I feel like Roll Some More does that, where it's like there's a beauty in kind of like, all right, we're gonna get there, high point, and we're slowly gonna kind of get to the comfort place.
Yeah.
Um, I feel
That
like that
pace
stuff
is
today is like really, really lost, or I feel like the pace of stuff is like there's no it's either like we're all slow or we're all fast and there's no kind of like we start slow gets up kind of crescendos then goes down we kind of that's an interesting point I think that you made.
Yeah, no, you ate that. That's exactly it. Because my I had an interview with Melodious. They're a
Hmm.
band out of California and they're incredible. And they spoke about movement. Like she was referring to Stevie Wonder's music and saying the word movement. And I'm like,
Hmm.
yes, that's what it is. Like I love movement in music. I love how in that song, Lucky Day song, like you're saying, it has all these different moments to it where you can just like let it breathe. I love
Yeah.
music that is
Hmm.
beginning to end. You play it all the way through because you cannot cut it too soon. Like you're not going to
No.
get to a certain aspect of it or a
Yeah.
certain part or a certain section. And you need to hear all the way through the end. Like
Yeah, because you're robbing yourself of something like where
you
even the
are,
parts where he's not singing the melody on the ending is kind of like the icing on the cake where it's like if you don't have that you kind of miss that moment of like exhale and I guess maybe that's like the stuff that I'm that I'm looking for where
yeah.
like especially on like D'Angelo's Voodoo album I think he does that all the time where he's like it might be pure chaos for like 30 seconds before but then he doesn't just transition to the next song he kind of lets you ease into it or he'll set you up the next song and kind of like all right, now we're going to slowly get up into it. And I feel like that aspect is gone. It's kind of just like, all right, start, stop, start, stop, start. That's interesting.
Yes, and like what is the rush? Where do we have to go? Because even I have a favorite DJ. She's one of my favorite DJs. Her name is DJ Lovey, and she's out
Hmm.
in Brooklyn. And she talked about the feminization of DJing, which I just love how
Hmm.
she thinks. And she was just saying, like, we don't need to like aggressively switch to each song. Like, we don't
Yeah.
have to make everything about a crazy cut transition and just like super high energy and this aggressive approach to DJing. Like, we can blend, we can take our time, we can let the song play all the way out and like fade into the next. And I'm like, yes, because that's what I love about super long songs. Like I was just
Hmm.
listening to Why We Speak, Robert Glasper, Esperanza
Yeah.
Spalding.
It's like, how long is that song? Like 8, 9 minutes? Like
It
super,
feels like that. It's
super
five
long.
minutes. And same with Imagination by Earth, Wind and
Hmm.
Fire. A lot of songs by them are just long in general, but like that's I feel like when the jam session takes over, like what are you supposed to do?
Yeah.
Same
We're,
with
we're
like Stevie
here. We're
Wonder's
here.
exactly. Even like Do I Do the extended
Hmm.
version. There's
It's like
like a
7 minutes
special
long. Yeah.
yeah. And
Hmm.
like I love music like that that allows the jam session to extend.
Yeah, because even I think of like to Stevie Wonder stuff where he would have like Superwoman and then it would be Slash like Where Were You When I Needed You? And it's literally 2 songs on one, which when you're listening to it, it's kind of like this is a lot. But then when you listen to the song, the one literally transitions right into the other.
Mhm.
So talk about at least that part a little bit about, I mean, obviously there are women DJs who certainly are out there shining, but there are certainly not who, get the recognition and respect they deserve. But I think, what perspective do you think that that adds to music? Because I do like the aspect that you said something about being unrushed and not aggressive. And I do think that art of kind of DJing is not as prevalent. So can you talk at least about how that perspective is something new and kind of how you see it?
Yeah, I think just in general, like I think female DJs, I mean, I'm not saying that every
Yeah, no, of
man is
course.
the
No, of
same
course.
way
Yeah.
or anything, but I think that there is more of a love of the process instead of it just being about the results. Like that was a
Yeah.
fire set, bro. Like, and then for us, it's just like, man, that was like so, we can enjoy and be a little bit more present during what's
Hmm.
happening, be a little bit more attentive to how it's resonating with the audience. And I know for me, I'm part of a community called She Spins Global, and it's
Hmm.
based out of Dallas, Texas. I live in Michigan right now, but it's just a really cool online thing that's now a
Hmm.
Discord group and everything. And
Yeah.
there's the resources and community around female DJs and girls getting into DJing.
Yeah.
And yeah, we wanted to create this thing. This came from DJ Dawn. This
Yeah.
was her idea, but I became a part of it because I noticed that so many girls will ask me like, what controller are you using? I want to get
Hmm.
into it too. Or do you teach, or do you da da
Yeah.
da da? And I never saw myself getting into it as much as I am now. I thought it was going to be
Hmm.
something that was just fun and a hobby. But when you do something well enough in front of enough people, you start to become
Yeah.
known for it, though.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
I really like the fact that it's becoming less gender based, and it is about
Yeah.
everyone who has an interest in music, even if it's production, feeling as if there's no barriers to that. And I
Yeah.
really
No,
love
certainly.
that about the internet too. Like,
Yeah.
no barrier to entry for starting a platform about your love for modern and classic soul music. Like I
Yeah.
didn't ask
Hmm.
anyone, is this okay? Could I do that? Is it okay if I start doing this or that, or having personal events or live stream?
Yeah.
Like there's
You can just
no,
go. Yeah.
you
You
can
can
just
just go
do
now.
it. And I just want
Yeah.
more women to feel empowered, especially even if music isn't their thing. I think really it's just the principle of like, what do you want to do? What do you like care about a lot that you might
Right.
even feel self-conscious about because you don't know if it's like the coolest thing in the world to be so excited about. And, just do it because it lights you up. Like, I think
Yeah.
lean into those differences.
Yeah. No, and I think that's like the nice part I think about this kind of, I mean, there's a vibe called B, there's like so many other women in, the US, UK, and Europe all over. And I think the good thing is that I think the difference that I have noticed, I think with women DJs and playlist curators is that I think the attention to like the little things, I think is just like a little bit different. Where I think for a lot of men, it's kind of a thing of like, yeah, the approval side comes from probably like the movement, but it has to be like high. And if people aren't like moving in an aggressive manner, then the set might not. I feel like internally feel like the set's not good. Where I feel like you all are okay with just saying like, okay, we're gonna let this breathe, and it might not always be super high octane, but like there's a comfortability in that. And I think that goes to your earlier point of probably like the authenticity part is like you don't have to force yourself to be something that you're not. And I think that's probably the more refreshing thing. I'm sure it's probably like being in that community where people can just be themselves. They don't have to, okay, well, I have to be this type of DJ to be a woman and be successful. If I'm interested in, early 80s, I can do that. If I'm interested in 90s, I can do that. If I'm interested in 2000s, that's my bag. It's like how you said your bag is like 70s and jazz. You don't have to say, all right, I have to play what's ever on Hot 97 to get the
Exactly.
platform and recognition.
Yeah, and I get questions about that too. My little cousin, he asked me, he was like, so, someone wants you to come to a party and like how do you like where do people ask you to DJ? And I'm like, yeah, I make my own events, but also you just be yourself completely so then the right people will want you for what they're doing. Like you will not hire me to DJ your like twerk marathon party. I don't know
Freaknik
what
Part
to
Two.
your freaknik. You wouldn't want me to. And it's not like that is an energy and a vibe and it's fun. And if I did that, they would be like, bro, who is on the text right
Who
now? Like,
won?
please. She doesn't even know what to play. And that's not even putting myself down. It's just really like I know what I'm an expert at and what I know really well. And so I can put you onto deep cuts. I can put you onto new stuff that you will absolutely love and be like, what is the name of this song based off of if you enjoy the type of music that you hear me curating or sharing online.
Right. So you're not going to start off the high octane white party with Alexander O'Neal.
Right, right. And oh, this is what I wanted to say. So I just did I just DJ'd at a local event in my hometown,
Hmm.
Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I was the only female DJ on and the youngest at the same time.
Hmm.
And so it was all these like older black male DJs. There was one Latino DJ, and it was like they were all over like 40 something.
Yeah. Hmm.
And it was interesting, like the type of music that they played. It was super high octane, like,
Hmm.
basketball game type,
Yeah.
like,
Be some
halftime
head busters.
show.
It's like, what's going
Yeah.
on?
And then I get up there and I like start my set with Everybody Loves the Sunshine. And then it's just like lays this blanket over everybody. And then I go into my other stuff real slow. And then all the women start coming out and hustling to like this
Yeah.
slow song by Sebastian Michael. And it was
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
a vibe though. And that was the thing. I just always wanted to feel like a vibe and I wanted to feel like a full piece. Like I feel like
Yeah.
when I'm up, like I'm painting and like it
Yeah.
needs to make sense for
Yeah.
me to be an
So
experience.
I didn't know you were from Grand Rapids. My dad's from Kalamazoo, Michigan, which is
What?
hilarious. Yeah, which is hilarious. So at least, given that I have a father from Kalamazoo who has probably taught me more than music I know, I think actually being from Michigan gives you a really good perspective, I think, on music, not only because you have the influence
Yeah.
of Motown, but you have kind of like the Chicago influence when they have their completely own different, like if you ever listen to Detroit House and Chicago House, they are two totally different things. Can you at
Yeah.
least talk about kind of being from Michigan and being in music? Because I think people really do sleep on just how important Michigan is as like a music place in terms of it's a city and it's a state that loves music that just extends far beyond Detroit, which I think most people think of, oh, Michigan, Detroit. It's like, no, there's other places in
I
Michigan.
know they think Detroit is a state, like,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Literally, when people ask for my dad's from, they're like, "Oh, Detroit." I'm like, "No, Kalamazoo." They're like, "Where's that?"
yeah,
I'm
no,
like, the other side.
right. Yeah, no, I've experienced that too, so I feel for him. And yeah, being from Michigan, growing up on Motown, like
Hmm.
my grandma, she loved Motown. And so
Yeah.
that was what I would hear at her house, Mr. Postman,
Yeah.
heard it
Yeah.
through the grapevine, like all of these amazing songs. I mean, I think she put me on to my very first like music documentary too. It was called like 6 Feet from Stardom, and it was about like the
Hmm.
background singers who
Yeah.
were a part of Motown. So just even getting me in my music journalism bag, which I never really considered until now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so being from Michigan, I never thought too much of it. I didn't think that it was really like this special place, especially
Hmm.
going to Howard University. I felt like, man, like I'm such a little fish in a big pond. There's people
Yeah.
from California and
Yeah.
people from New
Right.
York and Atlanta. Like
Okay.
I just felt so little and irrelevant, like I was born in a cornfield or something.
Yeah. Right.
No offense to anybody who was born in a cornfield, but I just really felt like, man, is my state super irrelevant? But now
And when
that
people
I'm
are asking me, like, "Where's that?" I can understand that. Yeah.
yeah, right. And I can't, and at the time, now I don't do this, but before I would say, oh, yeah, we're 2 hours away from Detroit, like giving
Yeah.
our
Like you
own
get out. Yeah.
relevance.
You get out the palm, and you're like,
Yeah, like why can't we just be valuable in ourselves instead of just like our proximity to Detroit? So I have way more pride in where I'm from now. But now looking more into producers and understanding that there's
mhm.
people from the Midwest, like you have
Yeah.
like Common, Chance, Kanye as a producer, all these other artists that I'm blanking on, but it really is amazing that they're from the Midwest. I mean, even Prince is from the Midwest.
It sure
And
is. People forget about
so
that.
isn't Gary, Indiana considered in the Midwest too?
It is. Freddie Gibbs is from there.
So
There's a lot. Yeah. Yeah.
Michael Jackson, a lot of funk music originated from Ohio, which is in the Midwest as well.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, it just helped me to be like, okay, man, like we are no one to like sleep on. Like
Yeah.
we
No.
actually have a really good sense of being influenced by everyone around us. And I
Hmm.
think even me having like at a time in my life feeling like I was super like, oh man, I wish I was from a bigger state. That feeling helped me to admire what was happening everywhere else.
Yeah,
So
I feel like being from there, you kind of
sponge.
have to, where I think you're kind of in the middle of a bunch of things, which I think makes you more like aware of stuff. Like I think my dad being from Kalamazoo wouldn't make him as interested in house music, which he loves, but also make him interested in soul. And if you know those genres, you know that like, I mean, now house is like super popular, but like all that stuff is just taken from like Chicago house stuff in the 80s and just repurposing it, maybe putting a bass line on it and throwing it out there. Um, so talk to me about your upcoming show, which I know you're doing events across the country. Talk a little bit about that, especially your event in DC, because we have a big audience in DC. So talk to us about the event, what to expect, how to purchase tickets, and all that jazz.
Yeah, so my event is called the Soul Sugar Joint Chocolate City Edition, and it kind of is cute because Soul Sugar and the idea of like candy and sweet
Mm-hmm.
things. So it was like, okay, Chocolate City. And like I said before, it's going to be a groovy, high vibrational family cookout feel. We were very particular about where we wanted to have it, and it's going to be such a good time. It really is going to feel like a really loving backyard cookout sort of thing with a really amazing crowd of people who are music heads, old souls, and crate diggers, people who are open to music discovery and don't need to know every single song the DJ is
Mm-hmm.
playing. But what is special about my sets, from what people have told me, is that it's the music that you didn't think anybody else knew.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like it helps you to be like, oh my God, yeah, this is fire. And it feels like confirmation and affirmation in a way. So I will be playing music that helps me to feel good, and you will feel it too if you pull up. All the tickets are on Eventbrite, and there's a discount for Howard students. And yeah, so it's my first in DC, and the last one that I did was in Grand Rapids. And there's a video on Eventbrite for how the vibe was in Grand Rapids, so you can understand how it really is just people who came to dance, who came to have a good time, and who love music that is from the 70s, 80s. I go all the way through the 2000s in some certain cuts,
Yeah.
but definitely heavier on like jazz feel, on funk
Mm-hmm.
feel, soul. So even neo soul as well. But just
Yeah.
yeah, it'll be a good time for any
No,
music lover.
good. And for those listening, the link will be in whatever description you are currently listening to. And I have one final question for you. This is stuff that I like to ask a lot of people. Um, if you had to pick 5 albums, let's say you are at a record store that has endless records and you have the ability to just type what record you want and they will bring it to you. This can either be a record that you already have or a record that you've been looking for. What 5 records would you want? You can pick any 5 in the world.
I want that free by Denise Williams. And I want Pizzazz by Patrice Rushen. I
Which
really
one? Which
want
one was that? That wasn't the
um
one. That wasn't the classic one where she has the black and all the. I'm trying to think
no, I
which
think
one that
that's
is.
straight from the heart.
That is straight from the heart. Okay, I have that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to think of which one
Okay.
I
Nice. Yeah, man, I want that one too. So I'd say
have.
straight from the heart jazz and free. And then I want Ego Death, because I feel like that was
Yeah,
the album that
that's.
changed my taste in music.
Mhm.
And man, my last one, I have Love and Chaos coming soon. Flower Child.
Oh yes, who someone who we have both talked to.
Yes. So
That's
I'd say
good.
that's like my five
Yeah,
for
no,
right
that's a good list because I think a lot of the ones that it's always like I feel like it's always the things that you grew up on where you're like, these are the things that I just literally cannot find anywhere. Like, there's a musician called Don Blackman who's done a bunch of stuff that's been sampled that I literally could not find, and I think my dad literally got it from like somewhere in Germany where he had to like found someone to get it. But like all the other stuff I'm thinking of is like old Parliament stuff, or like anytime I see Roy Ayers stuff, I'm like, I'm gonna get this because I probably won't be able to get it anywhere else. And to
now.
your point, that's probably like the stuff that you can't get online. You have to like happen to be in a record store, and it's always the thing about record stores, just like it's underneath a crate that's covered by like a bucket of water that's leaning,
Yeah.
it's coming
That's
out
so
the
true.
ceiling. Yeah, it's like
Especially with
never
soul
easy to
music.
find the things that you want. It's like look
Yeah.
behind that old stack of newspapers from '93, it might be under there.
Yeah. And I mean, in sometimes record stores, it depends on how much they value Black music, whether or not their selection is
Yes.
even good. So
Yes, because
I
I
visit a
do
lot
not
of
go to a
record
lot of
stores.
record stores in DC because they do not. So my favorite one is in Chicago. It's Hyde Park Records because they're like the only one that I know if I want to get anything that's for us by us, they'll
Okay.
have it. Yeah.
I need to go there then. And I'll switch out one of my Patrice Rushen records for Perfect Angel, Minnie Riperton.
Oh, that's a her. I've never seen her stuff anywhere in vinyl.
Right.
I don't think it exists. I really don't. Like Marvin Gaye's After the Dance. I've never seen that in a record store. Maybe because every time someone sees it, they just like, I'll buy this right now because I won't be able to find it. Um, is there any record that you currently have or CD that you're like, this is like my all time like pride? Like this is like the thing that I'll hang up for everyone to see. Is there like a flex record that you have?
I have my box of records right next to me actually, but I would say, hold on.
No, as we look, yeah, mine is above me, which is
I would
hilarious.
say my songs in the key of life because I actually
That's
have
a
a
good one.
slip.
Yeah.
I have a slip in it with that was for his fan club. Like it was like an original slip to apply for his fan club back in the day. And the thing is,
Really?
they keep pressing this album, so it's not like rare or anything. Anybody can get this record, and it's relatively cheap right now, which
Yeah.
is
Hmm.
crazy. I feel like it should be a bit more expensive, but it's just the fact that yeah, I could apply to his membership club back in the day if I wanted to, and I just think it's so cool. I wish I could find it, but what was the one that you said was above you?
Everything. I probably mm, I can't even imagine which ones. There are the funny thing is that as much as I love like kind of the old stuff, I like actually finding like the stuff that I currently listen to in record form because I feel like
Yeah.
that's harder. Like you just mentioned Flower Child. There's a artist I love from Dallas named Liv. I have one of her albums. There's another artist who I need to figure out how to get one of hers. Her name is Tia. She's from Chicago. She has an album that I love. So it's like the new stuff that I actually like a lot more just because people aren't really, which is why the Flower Child release is so crazy because people just aren't putting their stuff out on vinyl if it's like freshly released, unless you're like Drake or Travis Scott. Like,
Right. They have
Sebastian McKell might only release 100 albums of his U or his latest EP, and it's like if you don't get that, you're not getting it. Which is,
so
I think,
true.
the hardest thing about it. As a music lover, you're like, I wish I because I have more CDs than vinyl.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I know Samara Joy, but her voice on
Mm-hmm.
vinyl just makes so much sense. So
It does. It
I
does
have
make so much
hers.
sense.
And then I know Gareth Duncan, he's putting his album out on vinyl too. So that's
Yeah.
a must cop. But this was
Yeah.
the oh, you can't even see it
No,
because
I
we're
can see
live.
it. Yeah, we can see it.
But yeah, it's cool. It's like his membership like sign up thing. So I just thought that that was like such a cute little relic.
And that's, I
And
think, the funny thing about those old vinyls is that they just included like so much stuff, like for unnecessary reasons. Where it was like, why would I want a full description of Steve Arrington from Slave? Why am I in his like kitchen right now? And he's like
it's so
writing like
true.
a handwritten note from him. I'm like, what is this? But I guess
Yeah.
that was just the thing that you did. Like,
Yeah, I mean, you're just building an entire world around the album. I mean, there's so much that has gone into it that I wish that there were more, like, there was more emphasis on liner notes and
mhm.
creating little booklets for every album. Like, there used to be, even in CDs, they would have that, like, exclusive photos that you couldn't find anywhere else.
Yeah.
Little
Hmm.
booklets that they had. But I guess a second, like, amazing album that I have are both of Cleo Soul's albums. So I
Yeah.
have
Hmm.
Rose in the Dark and I have Mother on
Oh, that's yeah.
vinyl.
All
And
right. So
those are definitely my
when I'm
classic.
walking around Grand Rapids talking about where's
No,
Brooks at, but come through the
I'm on the
window
Rob list.
and just slip that out. Well, Brooks, this has been amazing. I encourage everyone to please check out her stuff at the Soul Sugar Joint. So please just tell folks where to follow you, where to keep updates, whether TikTok, Instagram, all that. Just tell people where to connect with you.
Yeah, so you can find Soul Sugar Joint on TikTok where it originated. You can go all the way back and watch my first video all the way through. If you love music history, you'll really like what I posted on TikTok. Have mixes on SoundCloud. I have playlists on Apple Music and on Spotify. Also have a YouTube channel where I interview artists, and I also upload those on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and wherever you listen to podcasts. And then what else? I also have my Instagram account where I'll post like pretty much every day what I'm listening to on my stories. So you can constantly be put on. If we have a same music palette, then you might find a new favorite song based on what I'm sharing as a song of the day. And it's just a really good way of just staying up to date and knowing what's happening with the platform. And that's where you'll find any updates. and also my website,
Yeah.
soulsugarjoint.com, where I sell my merchandise. So yeah, there's a whole world, a whole ecosystem that you
You're
guys can.
accessible.
Yeah, I'm mad accessible.
Well, Brooks, this has been great. And once again, we encourage everyone to check out the platform. Go to your show in DC, which will be in the show notes wherever you are listening. But
Yes,
Brooks,
August
thank you so much.
26th. I realized I did not say that. August
Yeah,
26th.
yes. All right. Thank you so much, Brooks.
Thank you.